Well, I'm Katherine Hufham. Unfortunately, I wasn't born at Dozier. That was my mother's fault. She had me at New Hanover, but I got back to Southport as quickly as I could. So I grew up in Southport, attended Southport High School and elementary school. I went to Fort Johnston Academy, which was a private school, and later went to Peace College in Raleigh and graduated from Mount Olive College later in life.
What's your first memory, childhood memory?
Playing with my friends on my birthday party, on my third birthday party.
Yeah. What was Christmas like? What kind of celebration did the family have?
We always had a big Christmas celebration at my grandparents' house on the corner of Nash and House Street, which is now being renovated. My Aunt Sally was a fashion designer and illustrator in Washington. So when she came home, we were the only grandchildren and nieces and nephews at the time. So it was like double Santa Claus. So we always had big meals and lots to celebrate.
Did Katherine and her mother, Miss Trudy, have donated to the society over the years some really wonderful artifacts and photograph collections from their family, and it's really much appreciated.
It was exciting. I had a lot of friends. We roller skated. My best friends growing up, the girls were me, Libby Walton, Joan Bomer, Mary Tomlinson. The four of us were kind of together all the time. We read a lot of Nancy Drew mysteries, so we were always trying to solve crimes in Southport. And we were snooping around yards when we weren't supposed to be in yards at night. Just being Nancy Drew and all the other characters. But it was a fun life. In the summer, we took art lessons, swimming lessons. We went to the beach. We hung out on the rocks in front of the garrison. The thing to do was to take a picnic lunch on low tide and stay out on the rocks until the high tide came in and left, because we didn't want to put our feet in the water because back then the sewage was leaked into the river. So that was why we stayed on the rocks. But it was fun. We went to the beach, we played, we rode our skateboards, bicycles. And before we had our driver's license, we would take the ferry over and spend the day. We'd take our bikes over and hang out on the beach and have picnics. So it was fun.
I have a question for Katherine. Katherine, during your Nancy Drew period, did you ever solve the mystery of who was ringing Ruth Hood's doorbell?
No. But it wasn't me.
It might have been a little kid that lived on the block with her.
It might have been you.
A confession to me.
Since I was the first one, I wasn't really prepared.
Go ahead.
I grew up on Atlantic Avenue in the house that Susie Carson bought after we moved out of that house. My first job out of college was a legal secretary, and I worked with Susie Carson for 5 years. So I had quite a connection with her. And then I worked with Carolina Power and Light for 16 years, and then worked with Liberty Home Care in Wilmington as a personnel and safety rep and nurse recruiter. Worked for Dozier for 5 years and became a realtor, and that's been the last 15 years of my life. So.
For the folks who went to Southport High School, can you explain to us how you started high school in the first grade?
I went there in the first grade. It was grades 1 through 12, and it was special. And I was so excited because after the sixth grade, the junior high was upstairs, and you really it was very special to be up there with the high school students. And unfortunately that year the school burned, so my dreams went up in smoke. But Mike was we were in a 7th and 8th grade combination that year, and Annie Francis was our homeroom teacher and our glee club director. And after Southport High School burned, then we integrated with Brunswick Training School, and it became Brunswick County Southport High School. I think that was the name of it before South Brunswick was open.
Like, Katherine, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you when you were in school?
The funny?
Yeah.
When I was in Girl Scouts, Mary Tomlinson, Joan Bomer, Libby Walton, and I left the Methodist Church, which is where we had our meetings. And Southport High School was directly in front. And Annie Weeks, who was Mike's aunt, I believe, is that right, Mike?
That's right.
She was our fourth grade teacher. I think Mike was in my fourth and fifth grade combination. But we looked outside, and the only two cars we saw at the school were Miss Annie Weeks' car and Miss Lingle's car. And we were scared of Miss Lingle, and we were being the Nancy Drew girls. So we walked across the street, and you could climb up on the side of the building and look in the classroom, and Miss Weeks wasn't there. And the coat closet was directly behind the classroom, and it had a window as well. And her pocketbook and her coat were there. And we just knew that Miss Lingle had hurt her in some manner. So we ran around to the cafeteria and got Miss Maisie Willis and Miss Mamie St. George to open the door for us so we could run down the hall and scream for Miss Weeks. We were scared something had happened to her. And here comes Miss Lingle with a broom. And she chased us down the hall. We ran in the girls' bathroom and hid up on the toilets with the door shut. And finally she left. Well, we just knew. We went back through the cafeteria. We beat on the door for Miss Maisie to let us back out. We knew the next day we were going to go to the principal's office and get a paddling, because that's what Miss Lingle would have sent us to. So Libby was so upset about it, she couldn't even go to school the next day. But we got back to school, and Miss Weeks smiled at us and hugged us and told us that she was very appreciative that we loved her so much. So it was embarrassing and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
The excitement about that school, there were always festivities. There were May Day festivities. We would wrap the maypole. We would have dances. Mrs. Lingle was very creative. We performed on the stage in the auditorium. We would have crepe paper dresses that were like flowers, and we would dance and perform. The whole community came out for that. That was something special for that school, because everything in town really centered around the activities at the high school, whether it was from the 1st or the 12th grade. And back then they had mascots for all the classes, which meant they had little children be with the senior class when they graduated. I happened to be a mascot with a little boy named Randy Hahn for the class of 1962, and that was Robert Howard's class and Measy Herring's class. And I got to even go to the junior-senior prom with them. And Sally Ward was the May Queen that year, and I got to be her flower girl. So when they had the big May Day festivities in front of the school, wrapping the flagpole, I got to throw rose petals for her as she walked up the steps of the school and sat on her throne as the May Queen. So it's a lot of fun as a child, a lot of things going on. Well, I rode my bike, played on the river. I went to my friends' houses. My mother took us to the beach any day that she could get us there. When we didn't go to Yopon Beach, which was really cool because they had a pavilion there, basically. You could rent rafts, get ice cream. There was a ski ball, is that what you call it? Anything you wanted to do right there on the beach. And if we didn't go to Yopon Beach, we went over to Boiling Spring Lakes to the swimming area, which I think is on Spring Lake Drive or Spring Lake. But we took swimming lessons, we took art lessons. We had a fulfilled summer. We traveled. My grandfather's family was from Fernandina, Florida. So we would go there quite often, or we would go to the mountains. There was never a dull moment. I did have chores. I don't think I got an allowance, but I babysat. I made 50 cents an hour. So but that was my summer.
You left out ambassador camp.
Oh gosh, yes. How did you remember that? I went to
Just popped in my
ambassador
head.
camp. I went to ambassador camp in the summer up at Lake Waccamaw. So
A lot of us did.
yeah,
What was ambassador camp?
it was a non-denominational camp. I went there as a camper, and I also went there and worked in the summer. It was volunteer, but I loved it there. I had a lot of friends from Whiteville, Elizabethtown, Clinton. A lot of those children came to ambassador camp. Of course, I was Catholic, and this was non-denominational, and but they didn't care. Catholics were a minority in Southport.
Yeah.
I learned to water ski there, and made lifetime friends there. So Libby Walton and Stephanie Helms, the three of us would go together. So
Yeah.
we always had a good time.
Katherine, what kind of mischief did you create?
Well, I didn't do it on my own. It was me and Libby and Mary and Joan, and probably my friend Stephanie. Again, we were the sleuths of Southport, and we would sneak out of Libby. We would have a pajama party, and we would sneak out of Libby's house. She lived in the house where Dr. Zukowski lives now, on the corner of Rhett and Bay Streets. And Miss Annie Mae Woodside, who I'm sure the Historical Society is familiar with, she lived in the house where Dr. Fortney lives now on Bay Street. And we would sneak out, and the thing to do was to sneak through her yard. Well, we just thought it was fun, not that we were going to do anything really bad. It was just to sneak through her yard at night. And one night we were on the fence between her house and Dr. Templin's house because he was out of town. The lights came on, and she walked out on her porch with a shotgun. And it scared us so bad. The only thing Libby could come up with to say was, "Miss Annie Mae, I'm looking for my cat. He's been missing for about 3 days." And we all ran. That was our mischief, sneaking through yards.
All right, thank you.
My father had the Exxon, or I guess it was Esso station then, where the golf cart sales are on the corner of Leonard and Atlantic. And I can remember every Halloween, my father had to wash Ruth Hood's car because it was egged. I mean, it was a green car, but when he had it in the bay washing it, it was yellow. And it was every year. Oliver's Burgers solved every problem you ever had. When I was in the first grade, I had the red measles, and I was at Dozier Hospital. And I told my daddy, I said, "If you'll just get me a cheeseburger and a chocolate milkshake from Mr. Oliver's, I'll feel a whole lot better." He did. And the next day I got out of the hospital, and I've always attributed it to that cheeseburger and milkshake. It was the
Works
best.
for me, Katherine, that's good.
Yeah. Pardon?
Willie McKenzie's store, did you?
Oh, I did. I liked the grape ices. That was one of my favorites to get at Willie McKenzie's. But Dolly Evans had a store on the corner of Brown, the corner of St. George and House Street. And she made the best brown dogs you could ever eat. Well, yeah, some of us have T-shirts that say, "I ate at Oliver's Grill." I don't know if you can
That's right. Yeah.
But there was, it closed. It opened in 1949, and it closed in 1985. And Boyce Spencer, along with some other people, made a sign and hung on the front door. It was like a tombstone. And it said, "Here lies Oliver's Grill, born March 21st, 1949, died April 25th, 1985. For 36 years, it held its virginity, a darn good record for this vicinity. Rest in peace." It was really, I think I was in the 9th grade, may have been 10th, Mary Ellen will know. But when they brought the Eagle down from the Coast Guard Academy, they brought the cadets down to Southport, and they, the ship was, what is the right word, moored? What do you call it, Mike? You know, when they docked, yeah, at the city pier. And all of the young girls in Southport who were at least 14 or 15 and above were invited to a midshipman's ball at the community building. And then that was the old USO building. It had not burned. So it was a smaller building than what's there now. But it was such a great thing because all of us went to buy our formal dresses, and we got to dance with the cadets. And later we went out with them and played tennis and got to know them a little bit better, walking them around town. But that was quite a highlight for Southport girls, and everybody was invited. Of course, my mother said she wanted to go, but she couldn't. She probably would have had a better time than me because I was fairly
Your
shy.
mother has shared stories about going to the USO dances when she was a child.
Well, she used to sing for the sailors. So. But anyway, it was fun. Who were the characters that we remembered most growing up? Some of us would remember Pot Liquor. It was a dog who laid in the middle of Moore and House Streets. There was one stoplight in all of Brunswick County, and it was at that intersection. And Pot Liquor he was a town dog, and he would lay under that stoplight. He actually belonged to Dickie Aldrich, and then Foxy Howard took him, but he belonged to everybody. He was quite a character. That's my character that I remember.